Welcome back. We're at the Mandan Indian village near Bismarck, North Dakota. The Mandans were busy adapting corn to their climate hundreds of years ago.
When you're eating popcorn, when you're eating a chocolate bar, when you're putting vanilla in a seasoning, when you're eating beans, when you're eating squashes, that's thanks to First Nations.
We actually calculated the size of the gardens just for this village alone, and that is about 300 acres.
And what did they do with all of that produce? Well, each family built a platform like this one where they dried all of their corn, beans, and squash. And they also built underground storage caches in each of the earth lodges where they would store all of their vegetables. So we're going to go check one out. And it's about 100 degrees outside, and I was in one of these earlier, and it's so nice and cool. It's about 30-degree difference. And this is what it looks like. And apparently 15 to 18 people would live in each of the earth lodges.
Women were the gardeners here. The women owned the gardens too. The Mandans, amongst other sedentary cultures, I mean, the Mandans were very much aware of land ownership, and they practiced it. The gardens were handed down mother to daughter. Really, men didn't own much or anything. They just owned their clothes maybe that they had, or moccasins they had.
The Mandan were at the center of a large Indigenous trade network. People from all four directions gathered here to trade things like shells and buffalo hides for the Mandan corn and beans.
With one of the surveys, we actually recovered corn seed that we estimate going back to about 300 years ago.
Dakota still has one of the old corn cobs, and on this day, by a coincidence, he's passing along the 300-year-old cob to two Mandan community leaders.
I'd like to return this to the Nuita people, and you see you have an elder there.
They're going to give it to an elder who will try and grow it in her backyard.
The Mandan would actually discard their seed after maybe 3 or 4 years because they believed it had died. But there was a special where, I believe on PBS, where we saw scientists take wheat and propagate it. This wheat came from Egyptian tombs. And wheat that's over 2,000 years old, they made it come back again, they made it grow. We figured, well, if they could do that with seed that was 2,000 years old, we could do it with seed here that was only 300 years old.
Where is it growing?
Well, when we recovered some of the seed, we actually propagated it at our executive director's in his backyard, at his home, and he managed to get these corn to grow.
As I take one last look at the Mandan village, the footprint of the Mandan earth lodges still visible, I let it all sink in. The people who used to live here are gone, but thanks to their hard work, certain varieties of corn still exist today. I give thanks to our ancestors and the spirits for a safe journey to this very sacred place. Back at home, I have more appreciation for my garden and how it came to be. Lee Sims, an archaeologist, says the Mandan techniques of planting made it all the way up here to Manitoba, where I live on the Canadian prairies.
And I was working in southwestern Manitoba, and I started finding things like storage pits and started to realize the importance of plant domestication. And of course, relating to, we knew that the Middle Missouri groups, the Mandan Hidatsa, were trading up here, and the Dakota peoples that were up here were trading down there. So there was this important connection with village tribes and the corn, beans, and squash. And then started, once they discovered the Lockport site and realized that we had farming here, then all of a sudden I looked at what I'd been doing in the Melita area and saying, wow, well, I've got storage pits there. I'll bet they were farming there. And so then got interested in making people aware of that there weren't just nomadic bison hunters here, that there were people raising crops, and then into the broader picture of the phenomenal contribution of First Nations in the crops of the world. All of our history is replete with this error. You know, the Indian affairs decided to teach the Indians how to farm to survive because the bison were gone. Well, excuse me, but First Nations had been trading with the Mandan Haddats, so they knew about corn, beans, and squash and that sort of thing beforehand. And the civilizing influence was a myth.
Once Lee tells me about the Lockport site, I know I have to go for a visit. Lockport is on the banks of the Red River, a 30-minute drive north of Winnipeg. Lee is now working on an international exhibit about all of this fascinating history.
So we're actually standing on top of the area where they stored vegetables.
Yep. Corn, at least, probably beans and squash. They found direct evidence of the corn, but they didn't find the beans. They don't preserve as well, but certainly they have found corn seeds and corn cupules and so on.
And Lee, what was that like to be here and to look under the ground when it was excavated and see evidence of this?
It was exciting. It was more than exciting. It was mind-blowing, because there, you know, you can talk about something, you can hear about something, but the nice thing about archaeology is you show it, you prove it.
And when you're actually down there, do you ever get a feeling of a presence?
Goosebumps.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. You know, there's an essence, if you want, that's new and different. That it's not in sync with. It's not in sync, but it's different from everything you see around. You're in a whole separate world, a whole set of awareness and experience and revelation.
We head down the riverbank to take a closer look.
So Lee, what are we going to find here?
Well, if we look down here, we should be able to find evidence of the eroding shoreline. So we might actually see the odd artifact eroding out of there. In the early spring, before all of this vegetation grows, that's when people start seeing the evidence of eroding storage pits and artifacts.
So Lee, I would love to find something that has appeared on the riverbank from ages ago. So people actually find things here?
They actually do, particularly in the spring. And when we go down, you may just be lucky enough to find something down there.
Ooh.
There we go. So there's a piece of Knife River flint, a small flake that comes from western North Dakota. So that gives us evidence of trade taking place.
Lee says the piece of flint we found could have originated at the Mandan site that we were just at in North Dakota. We did not set this up. It was a complete surprise.
Well, we could find harpoons, or we could find pottery, any variety of things. What you have to do is develop a good eye. So you look down, it's like there's a piece of glass, and you look down, and is that a flake or is that a leaf? And you keep looking around, and there, that looks like, and it is. We have a piece of pottery. And not only that, but if you look at this side here, you see the groove in it. That's part of the farming period pottery. So this group of people we're talking about were actually making this pottery. So we now have evidence of a woman. It was well decorated. It's got style common to the pottery tradition coming up from the Dakotas. And so you've got this phenomenal piece.
What would this have been made from?
Local clays, and then crushed rock, and then they would have built it in a mold and a cloth mold, and decorated, smoothed it, fired it, and look at how thin it is.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a huge pot.
So neat.
Yeah, huge pot. Somebody's phenomenal skill.
Everything had come full circle, or so I thought. Coming up next, we return to Chichen Itza for the fall equinox.